All right, let's jump over to Simcoe, where we're talking about what's going on in terms of the rental market. And what we've seen here is kind of holding business as usual in terms of our median sale price, like what the units are renting for. We're hovering around that $2,500 a month. No real change in terms of our year over year. We are seeing more rentals come through in terms of like leases happening. We're up 10%. Days on market. It's a little competitive out there, Matt. And I want to jump right over to our new listing volume and talk to me about where we're sitting here.
Yeah, it's definitely, like we discussed before with York Region, where we're seeing a lot more supply on the market. Not so much in Simcoe. Yes, new listings, the third highest year we've seen since 2011 with 500. But we can also see like 2011 to 2017, there wasn't a ton of rentals on the market come March. Something kind of newer as a lot of properties hit the market. A lot of new listings hit the market for the rental side. So we did see the dip to begin the year, which is consistent with a lot of other years. The dip February. Nobody really wants to rent in the cold months, and then we start to see the listings hit the market again. So we did have 500, but it was below the last 2 years had much higher new listings than this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when we come into active listings, again, in Simcoe, we're not seeing the highest that we've seen in terms of that inventory, like we saw there in York. Still up there. There's still a lot of units for rent. I think what we might continue to see, if we go back to our page here, I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see a little bit more of a softening in that median price as we try to clear out some of this active listings. Again, we're not as high as we've been in 2 previous years, but it's still much above the norm in terms of what we used to see for active listings. And then when we see this is a good one, Matt. I want you to talk to me about actual lease volume that we're seeing here.
Yeah, so there's clearly a big shift to the amount of rental properties that are listed in the Simcoe area on the MLS. We're seeing that we'll have to start redoing this chart so that it's only between maybe 2020 and above, because really before that these numbers just aren't holding true anymore. But we are, unlike York Region, the lease volume is lower than it was the past 2 years. But we are breaking down from, the active listings aren't as high as before. The new listings aren't as high as the last 2 years. So the lease volume is struggling a little bit on that side as well. But I think when we look at the next slide on the median price is actually holding up quite well, all things considered.
Yeah, we're seeing that. And again, months of inventory, we have been trending upwards a little bit there. Like that's where that trend line seems to be going. While we are only at 2 months, so it's not like there's a ton of inventory out there. And when we come back to looking at our lease volume, our demand is at, a third. It's like the third all-time high for what we've seen in terms of actual units getting leased there in comparison to what we saw in obviously all the years prior. So there's a very healthy rental market up this way, and I think that's again why we're seeing such low months of inventory. Like in 2 months there, it's a landlord's market in terms of our months of inventory.